Next up to talk about garden design is Matt Arnn, our U.S. Forest Service Chief Landscape Architect, and also Mike Hill, who's our U.S. Forest Service Landscape Designer.
It's our pleasure.
All right. Well, Matt, can you first of all tell us what you all do as landscape architects?
Yeah, absolutely. Landscape architects are design professionals who combine art and science to create and improve different types of natural and built environments. We work with architects, we work with planners, engineers, tree experts, and many others to design and build a lot of the great recreation areas, the parks, the playgrounds, the trails, the greenways, and a lot of the spaces that you guys use every single day.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful job that you have as a landscape architect, and you also mentioned many other professions that our students might think about in their future to connect them with nature and the great outdoors. Now, you mentioned landscape, and can you describe and define what landscape means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Landscape is a combination of features that really make a place special. It can include some of the physical elements of a place, like a mountain or a building, and many of the living elements like trees or humans.
Okay, thank you. And Mike, I mentioned that you work with sustainable operations, and the term sustainable is going to be very important in some of our PollinatorLIVE garden grants. So could you explain the term sustainability?
Yeah, Timberly, sustainability is actually a pretty simple term. It means using natural resources that we have now, such as air, water, land, soil, and using those resources in a way that conserves some or saves some for people to use in the future. Some examples of the way that you might apply that concept to your school garden would be to use native plants. Those are plants that are going to be well adapted to your soil conditions and the amount of rainwater that you're getting in the area where your school is. Another would be to just generally conserve water. One way to do that is with a rain barrel. It's going to collect rainwater from the roofs and downspouts and store it so that you can use it to water your plants. That type of water is what we refer to as gray water. And gray water is very simply a type of water that's used that is okay for plants and animals, but it's not okay for humans to drink.
Well, thank you. It sounds like those are some really good strategies that we could all use in our gardening processes. Now, Matt, can you share with us the first step in garden design?
I'd have to say probably understanding what design is. Now, a simple definition of design is moving from what space you have to what space you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Now, the most important thing to think about when you're designing a garden is why you're doing it. You know, what's the goal here? Now, the pollinator gardens, which you take in a tour of, were created to attract pollinators, right? It's the birds, it's the bees, it's the bats that really make this garden thrive. Now, a garden could also be created to give teachers and students an opportunity to learn about nature. It could be an opportunity to improve the way our school looks, grow vegetables to eat, or maybe it's a place to play in a natural setting.
Well, and those are all really important elements to think about. So can you, Mike, tell us a little bit about some of the basic elements in garden design whenever you're thinking about that garden design?
The most basic element to think about is the people. You want to consider where they can go, where they can travel through the garden, and where they can be, where they can gather. So if you're thinking about pathways, pathways are going to be the places that help you move through the garden. You should be seeing two images on your screen. One is a set of stepping stones that are going through a grassy area, and another one is a gravel pathway that's going to have a stone border. The great thing about both of those pathways is that they are both permeable surfaces. They're going to let rainwater go through the pathway and go into the soil below. That's going to help keep the soil rich with water, and also it's going to reduce erosion in your garden.
Thank you. Now, after talking about some of those different elements of gardening, can you talk about, Matt, how we might apply those to different settings or different spaces that we're trying to develop?
Yeah, I think you really just have to trust your imagination and work with your space in an imaginative way. We've talked a lot about a number of the schools, the lack of space in cities, the quality of soil. These can be big challenges, but it doesn't mean you can't have a garden. Some places have created gardens in the cracks of pavement. If you have limited space, you can create a garden out of a living wall, a vertical garden. Right here in the in the garden here, the youth garden, we've got this really wonderful teepee over here that includes some morning glories and some passion flower. And it's a great way of allowing for the climbers to get sunshine, and it's a great home for the pollinators.
So it's really neat to meet some of those challenges and use that creativity, and we can tell right now that some of our students and Chris and the U.S. Forest Service Safety Bee are using that creativity and working together as pollinator partners.
There's all types of different gardening that you can do in containers if you can't get into the soil at your site. If you're looking at an image now of buckets, that shows a concept that's both a container garden or also related to a raised bed garden. For locations that may have a short growing season, cold frames and greenhouses are going to protect plants from the cold. That's going to basically allow you to start your plants while it's still cold. The thing to remember, a very simple difference. A cold frame is a smaller structure that may fit over even a structure like that small raised bed, and it's going to be movable. A greenhouse is a larger structure, but it's one that you can walk into. That's a great strategy if you also need to teach outside and occupy a space that's a little bit protected when the weather's cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So lastly, I would say that the most important thing for successful gardening really is you guys out there. It's the way that your ideas are going to work together with your hard work and make a garden successful. So we want to challenge you all to explore gardens and landscapes in your own neighborhoods and schools. Write down what you like and don't like about the space and how to improve it. And soon you're going to be designing your own special landscape.
Well, thank y'all so much.